Karate's bad boy versus Johnny Lawrence, pupil star of Sensei Kreese's Cobra Kai Dojo. Who wins and who faces ultimate defeat? Okay, so to understand this, we really need to dive deep into the lore, abilities, psychology, and above all, to strip them both of plot armor. We're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to assess this in two different scenarios. One in a tournament, and the second being a street fight. We all know the Johnny Lawrence from when he was a senior, and then again 34 years later as Sensei Lawrence. We only know Mike from when he was around the same age as Daniel in Karate Kid 3, so let's go with a younger Johnny and a younger Mike, around the same age as we saw Mike in KK3. Mike was the national champion, and nicknamed Karate's bad boy because of how he broke technical rules in tournaments. He did karate for a living, and he had no honor, no code. He was a wild animal, and that made him very dangerous. Chozen and Johnny both have a considerable amount of pride and honor in fighting. However, Barnes does not. As long as he wins, that's all that really matters. That said, he was a 10th degree black belt and showed no mercy. He was as violent as he was money hungry, and we all saw how hard he bargained with Silver. We really need to assess this fight in two scenarios, one on the street and one in a sanctioned tournament. So skill-wise, Barnes had practiced longer. He looked older, and physically he was bigger than Johnny from a muscular standpoint. In a tournament, Barnes would defy all rules and bludgeon Johnny, kind of doing what Johnny did to Daniel in the All Valley tournament, meaning he would sweep the leg, the arm, the face, and anything else he could illegally hit. Tournaments work on a point-to-point system, so he would just hit Johnny legally, then do it illegally, winning and losing a point back and forth, until Johnny was so hurt and battered that once they got to the sudden death mode, Barnes would just hit him once and that would be it. The victory would have been easy. I like to think, and this is just my personal theory, that this is one of the ways that Barnes won all of his tournaments. He was just overly aggressive, and he kind of did this point-on, point-off system where he would just kind of bludgeon his opponents until they had enough. He essentially played dirty. The problem with this here is that Johnny, albeit of course being a dirty fighter when we saw him against Daniel, which I will say that he had a problem with it when Kreese told him to sweep the leg again. You could see that Johnny has more of a moral code than Barnes does. Now, if there was a story just about these two characters alone, then Barnes would be the bad guy and Johnny, well, the lesser of two evils, if we can call them that. Johnny would hold back, and he wouldn't play to Mike's cheap moves. This would give Barnes the advantage, and if in a tournament, Mike would win. Now, if it were on the street, this would be an entirely different story. Maybe. And I say maybe because of what I mentioned earlier about Mike not having any honor. He would bring a bat to a fist fight, or brass knuckles to a fist fight. Now, Johnny was very good at street fights, and I say this out of a pure theory. I imagine with all of his bravado and the Cobra Kai gang, when they would roll up on people or just roll around the streets, he definitely would start and finish many street fights in the valley. I just really can't see him not going around fighting anyone who wouldn't oppose him anywhere. Now, think of it, at the movies, at the mall, out at the beach, the Cobra Kai gang in the 80s were lethal, and they showed no mercy to anyone. This gives Johnny the advantage when it comes to street fights, because he was in the gang as opposed to Barnes, who maybe was more of a lone wolf, let's say. We don't know much about Barnes, so really can't say much. They're both hotheads, and they both are very athletic, and they're obviously both very good at karate. If it were to come to a fight in the streets, and the Cobra Kai gang were surrounding Johnny in an alley, cheering him on as he fought with Mike Barnes, I think his pride of being the Cobra Kai poster boy wouldn't allow him to lose. I think in that scenario, Johnny would kick Mike's ass and leave him in a puddle on the ground. This, of course, is only if Mike doesn't get hold of a bat or a club or, heck, even the top of a trash can. That said, I'm sure all the Cobra Kais carried butterfly knives with them in their pockets as well. Come on, it's the 80s. Greasers and Soshas still existed. Well, sorta. Okay, well, maybe not totally, but hey, there were a lot of benders out there with knives, so it could happen. Now, at the very least, if Mike were to win, the Cobra Kais would jump in and jump him. They would just beat the crap out of him. Either way, in a street fight, Mike would lose. It'd be a close fight, for sure, but I think Johnny would outsmart Mike. Johnny has a lot more to lose on the line, so he's gonna definitely be much more calculated and use his techniques to be a little more defensive, especially once he got hit in the face a few times by Mike. I'm pretty sure he'd realize that this guy isn't Daniel, and I'm gonna play it a little more cool. So let me know what you think of this fight, who you think would actually win in both scenarios, in a tournament and on the street. What if Johnny was alone and there was no Cobra Kai gang with him? What would happen then? What if it was the Cobra Kai gang and Johnny versus Mike Barnes, Snake, and Dennis? Hope you have an awesome day. See you in the next episode, and until then, remember, pain does not exist in this dojo.